Hello parents. In this tutorial I want to talk about the one issue that troubles me, and I would like it done right at the beginning of our tutorials rather than at the end. It is mental child abuse, the rampant disease of our time. If you have a look at the shots that I've put up here, we will see what I mean by mental child abuse. Many people will say that, well, it's just a part of normal growing up. Is it? Well, I don't think it is. If we look at this one, here we have a healthy brain, one that's not abused, and one an abused brain. And you can immediately see the sort of differences in the brain between an abused child and a non-abused child. Here's another shot of the brain. Once again, the one on the left-hand side is abused, the other one is not. There's a classic picture. If we look at this little girl here she is. She's really worried and concerned and abused. In the back, we have this view of the brain. What's happening in her brain? Yes, you can spend a lifetime trying to forget a few minutes of your childhood. Emotional abuse is elusive. Unlike physical abuse, the people doing it and receiving may not even know it's happening. It may be more harmful than physical abuse because it can undermine what we think about ourselves. It can cripple all we are meant to be as we allow something untrue to define us. Emotional abuse can happen between parent and child, husband and wife, among relatives and between friends. The abuser projects their words, attitudes or actions onto an unsuspecting victim, usually because they themselves have not dealt with childhood wounds that are now causing them to harm others. One of the biggest ways of abusing children is rejection. To reject a child is to push them away, to make them feel that they are useless or worthless, to undermine the value of their ideas or feelings, to refuse to help them. Scorn is another one. To demean the child, to ridicule them, to humiliate them, to cause them to be ashamed, to criticize the child, to insult them. To threaten a child or someone who is dear to them with physical violence, abandonment or death, to threaten to destroy a child's possessions, to place them in danger or chaotic situations, to define strict and unreasonable expectations, and to threaten them with punishment, even they does not comply, even if they don't comply. Other ways to abuse a child is through isolation, to physically or socially isolate a child, to limit his opportunities to socialize with others. Corruption or exploitation, to tolerate or encourage or inappropriate or deviant behavior, to expose the child to antisocial role models, to consider the child as a servant, to encourage them to or coerce them to participate in sexual activities. The absence of emotional response, to show oneself as inattentive or indifferent towards the child, to ignore their emotional needs, to avoid visual contact, kisses or verbal communication with them, to never congratulate them, neglect, to to ignore the health or educational needs of a child, to refuse or to neglect or to apply the required treatment. Ignoring. Adults who have had a few of their emotional needs met often are unable to respond to the needs of their children. They may not show attachment to the child or provide positive nurturing. They may show no interest in the child or withhold affection, or even fail to recognize the child's presence. Many times the parent is physically there but emotionally unavailable. Failing to respond to or consistently interact with the child constitutes emotional and psychological abuse. Inconsistent or no response to a child's requests to connect. Failure to attend an infant's or physical, social, or emotional needs. Refusing to acknowledge a child's interest, activities, schooling with their peers, etc. Terrorizing. This may be a very odd one, but it's very true. Parents who use threats, yelling, and cursing are doing serious psychological damage to their children. Singling out one child to criticize or punish or ridicule or displaying normal emotions is abusive. Threatening a child with harsh words, physical harm, abandonment, or in the extreme case, death is unacceptable. Even in jest. Causing a child to be terrified by the use of threats and or intimidating behavior is sometimes some of the worst emotional abuse. This includes witnessing, hearing, or knowing that violence is taking place in the home. Excessive teasing, screaming, cursing, raging at the child, threatening or intimidating behaviors, scaring a child in front of others, unpredictable or unreasonable or extreme reactions, verbal threats to harm a child or self or others, hostility amongst family members, inconsistent or unreasonable demands placed upon a child, ridicule or humiliating a child in front of others, threatening to reveal personal or embarrassing information. It's a fact. Children and youth who witness family violence experiences all 6 types of emotional abuse. Isolation. A parent who abuses a child through isolation may not allow the child to engage in inappropriate activities with his or her peers, may keep a baby in his or her room, unexposed to stimulation, or may prevent a teenager from participating in extracurricular activities at school, requiring a child to stay in his or her room from the time school lets out until next morning, restricting eating or forcing a child to isolation or seclusion by keeping them away from their family and friends can be destructive and considered emotional abuse, depending upon the circumstances and the severity. Leaving a child alone or unattended for long periods, not permitting a child to interact with others, children, to maintain friendship, keeping a child from appropriate social and emotional stimulation, requiring a child to stay indoors in their room or away from peers, keeping a child from playing with friends and activities that they enjoy, not permitting a child to participate in the social activities, parties or groups or family events, excessive or extreme punishment for typical childhood behaviors, encouraging a child to reject friends or social contacts. Corrupting. Parents who corrupt may permit a child to use drugs, alcohol, or watch cruel behavior towards animals, watch or look at inappropriate sexual content on television, or to witness or participate in criminal activities such as stealing, assault, prostitution, gambling, etc. Encouraging an underage child to do things that are illegal or harmful is abusive and should be reported. encouraging or rewarding unethical or illegal behavior, drugs, stealing, cheating, lying, bullying, promoting or rewarding promiscuity, giving a child or use in the presence of a child drugs, alcohol, or other illegal substances, allowing or encouraging children to engage in behavior that is harmful to self and others. Exploitation or exploiting. Exploiting can be considered manipulation or forced activity without regard for a child's needs or development. For example, repeatedly asking an 8-year-old child to be responsible for the family's dinner is inappropriate. Giving a child responsibilities that are greater than a child of that age can handle, or using a child to profit, is abusive. Having expectations beyond the development stage of a child, forcing a child to participate in unwanted activities without just cause, requiring a child to care for a parent without siblings without regard for the child's age or ability, using blame, shame, judgment or guilt to condemn a child's behavior of other parents or peers or siblings, unreasonable expectations to perform chores or household duties, or exposing a child to sexually abusive or inappropriate content. Exposure to domestic violence is to expose a child to violent words and actions. The behavior of an emotionally abusive parent or caregiver does not support a child's healthy development and well-being. Instead, it creates an environment of fear, hostility, and anxiety. A child is sensitive to the feelings, opinions, and actions of their parents. Emotionally harmful attitudes may include the following. This behavior showing a lack of regard for the child. This behavior often includes rejecting the child by not showing affection, ignoring the child's presence and obvious needs, ignoring the child when they are in need of comfort, not calling the child by their name. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but verbal abuse may never heal. Here are some of the words that we can abuse a child by. Worthless, ugly, stupid, fat, all those sort of words can all abuse children. Saying unkind things to a child. Emotionally abusive parents can say things or convey feelings that can hurt a child deeply. Common examples: making the child feel unwanted, perhaps by stating or implying that life would be easier without the child. For example, a parent may say to her, "I wish you were never born." Ridicule or belittling the child, such as saying, "You're stupid." Threatening to a child with harsh punishment or even death represents continuous verbal abuse. The symptoms of psychological abuse of a child may include difficulties at school, bad behavior, etc., wrong diet, weight issues, emotional issues such as low self-esteem, depression and anxiety, rebellious behavior, sleep problems, can't stay asleep, always ill for no apparent reason. These are some of the issues that I want you to consider when you're considering the parenting of your child. It's so easy, isn't it, to abuse a child? It's so very, very easy. I look forward to receiving your feedbacks on this very, very critical subject.